All right. Hi there. I'm Colin, aka the Tone Wizard. Hope you're doing very well wherever you may happen to be. And I'm joined today over here by Trevor Ganoe. Trevor, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, Colin.
Yeah, if you have been following my channel, Trevor sent me a video. It's a Ween tier list as presented by one former president of the United States and two were they circus clowns or out of work politicians or whatever the hell they count as these days. But if you haven't seen that video, go and check it out. It's bloody hilarious. So Trevor, I just have explain what that video is to somebody who hasn't seen it.
Well, it's basically my version of this big trend that was happening. I guess it's still happening, but it like really started, I guess, in late February of, I guess it was on social media. There's this application where it's like text to speech AI, where you insert a clip of someone talking and it makes a template out of that. Where if you type in "Hello, my name is blah blah," it'll
Yeah.
say that exact sentence back, but in whatever voice you said. And the specific trend was to use that with President Joe Biden and former presidents Donald Trump and Barack Obama to make
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. But 90% of people making videos of them making tier lists of things, music, video games, foods, all sorts of stuff, and just having them argue. So mine
Yeah.
was just my version of that, but it was the discography of Ween, all their studio albums, because I thought that would be a really funny idea. And then I found out, oh, you can just get this program and do it, and I was like, oh, that'll be fun. And I did not have the most fun editing it because I'm not very good at editing, but
Yeah.
I think it was worth it in the end.
Dude, it was very good. I have to say, please go check it out. I'll put a link to that video in the bottom of this video, but go check that out. I thought it was hilarious and I thought it was very well written, man. I took a writing course 20 years ago, and from what I don't remember in that course, your writing was very good in that. So please go check it out. A highlight of mine would have to have been Trump saying that like the sound of Buenos Tardes was almost good enough to make him forgive Mexico and pay for the wall or something like that. That was good stuff. Yeah, so do
Yeah,
go check out that video, man. And so basically, you scripted it out, and then you feed it into the app, and it generates the dialogue, and then you have to kind of edit all that together. Is that how that worked?
basically, yeah. There's I guess there's a couple different apps people use, but the one that most people use is text to speech. And like there's certain variables where if you lower the variability of it, it's like a slider, and it'll be like it'll be less consistent, but it'll be more. You'll have sometimes you had to make more than one sample, so that sometimes they'll say like my name is Donald Trump, or sometimes they'll say my name is Donald Trump. There's kind of so there's a bunch of. I actually had to download like a whole bunch of like
Yeah.
random, like which clip of Trump saying that Buenos Tardes amigo is good do I like more? Do I like the one where he has more emphasis on this word or that? So that
You
was
know
kind of
what?
funny.
I thought that Obama's voice actually sounded pretty good because he just kind of talks like that all the time anyway. So yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I thought that
Oh,
turned out really well.
yeah, man. I hope that gets a billion views. I don't know if there's a billion Ween fans, but anybody who's a Ween fan should definitely go and check that out. Also on your channel, it was kind of funny because my buddy Mike, who has a Ween tutorial channel that he's done over the years, he actually sent me your video like 4 days before I got it, and I think I watched like 10 seconds of it, and I was like, geez, I got to take a better look at this. And then you messaged me to send it across, and then I went to your channel and I noticed that I looked at a couple of your tutorial videos to just pick some parts out of songs that I needed to figure out. So that it's a cool channel and definitely worth checking out if you're into Ween or playing guitar or whatever. So you just mentioned that you come from a band practice. Is that Ween related or is that just your own kind of stuff?
No, I'm in just like two bands at the moment, and I make my own music and post it online. But
Right
it's
on.
yeah, and I have I've made Ween covers, but they're mostly just like for my own amusement. I think the only one I've shared is I think I did like a cover of Birthday Boy and put that on SoundCloud just for people to hear. But yeah, I mean, I would say it's Ween related because Ween is a big influence on me.
Yeah.
Because I got into them when I was about 15 or 16, and as Diener said, all your influences stop after you stop being a teenager. So I'm stuck with them the rest of
Yeah.
my life. Of
And then
everything I do is going to be influenced by them.
yeah, and then if you're anything like me, you'll keep listening to your favorite bands from your late teens. and then you'll just be complaining that they don't sound like they used to when you were 18, because nothing sounds like it does then. But yeah, about Ween, like I've had a lot of bands over the years, and I didn't actually find Ween till I was like in my mid to late 20s or whatever, and they had been the band that I was trying to make myself. I thought that my buddy was like, oh, your band, your music kind of sounds like this, check it out. And when I found it, it was like the fucking doors opened up. So yeah, you don't need to choose a genre, you don't need to choose a style, you can play whatever you want to play as long as you try to execute it well. I think that's the thing about Ween that I love the most, is that they skip around through the genres and they can always execute. So
Yeah, that sort of hit me later. It was just they're probably the weirdest one, because I don't really like weird music. I have nothing wrong with weird music, but
yeah,
it's not like I'm not like I hate mainstream. I want to listen to the weird stuff. Like I don't
yeah,
I'm not like that at all. And Ween just sticks out to me because if I do have a niche of my interest, I didn't realize that I have one, but if I guess I did have one, it would be weird artists that just make songs. Like they
yeah,
don't just make noise.
yeah,
Ween's only done that a handful of times, but
yeah,
they make songs, and I love that because I love songwriting and song craft. I don't think I know too much more about it than any other musician, but I just enjoy it, and
yeah,
I admire them. And I like, for me, for my money, Aaron, especially Aaron and Mickey, but they're just like one of my favorite songwriters. I just love their
yeah,
attitude towards music. They just
yeah.
they just feel they need to do something and they do it.
Yeah, I mean, with Aaron, he's definitely probably he's one of my top sort of five songwriters, I would say. And I think I heard an interesting comment on a channel about it's called, I think the channel's called Guitar Gate. The guy does like music teacher reacts, and he said something about the Grateful Dead that I think applies to Ween. It's like the difference between the Grateful Dead and 100 million other jam bands is that the Dead had great songs, and I think that's the thing about Ween. There's a million weird bands, and I don't want to offend anybody, but people send me shit all the time, like Neutral Milk Hotel and like all these fucking bands that have a pretty deep following, but I listen to them, there's interesting sound happening, but the songs just for me just aren't as good as something like Ween. And like I say, they do it across all the genres. So that's definitely I think we're in agreement there. And about Aaron, I think he's a fantastic songwriter. And did you like the Freeman album that he put out in between the Ween stuff?
Oh my god, I loved it. I think,
Yeah,
not to be too blasphemous, but if I were just to do an actual ranking of my personal opinion of all the Ween albums, I don't need to get into that right now, but if I had to ballpark it, I would say that Freeman album would be like
hmm.
probably in the higher half. I think that album's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think that's a hot take either. I think that there's some of those songs on there are great. Some of it kind of borders into like an adult contemporary vibe. Like you could put it on like
Yeah.
a wine, like it's like the music that would be played at that party that he referenced in your party early on in the evening when everybody was just eating and stuff like that. Like some of that
I
song,
never thought about that.
yeah, like I could picture it, whatever that hype, and we're getting a little hypothetical here, but that party that he references, I could picture them that song from the Black Bush by chance. So like that kind of
Ah,
that like soft music. And I don't know if I don't think you would have caught that tour when it came around, eh? No?
I have not, I've only seen Ween live once. I saw them at the, oh gosh, the Fillmore in Silver
Yeah.
Spring, Maryland, and I went with a buddy of mine, two buddies of mine, and I just, that was the time of my life. It was just, I could feel my heart start to race once they came out on stage. As
Yeah.
cheesy as that sounds, but just seeing like these guys are real.
Yeah.
And Jeaner's got such a, he looks older than he is at this point, but
Yeah.
he's got such a like joyful glow to his face. It just made me smile.
Yeah, somebody said, or I think somebody said half of this. They said that he looks like David Gilmour and Billy Joel, kind of like if that was
Yeah,
like if there was like a transitional photo, he would be the middle photo between David Gilmour and what's his nose there. But that answers one of my questions. So I guess you only seen them live post reunion then, just based on your age, right?
yeah, I got into them. I guess I would have been in eighth or ninth grade. I guess I'd say ninth grade. I again, I'm a younger, so
Yeah.
I realized that I had been listening to Ween. This is how I'm sure a lot of younger people have gotten into them, but they had some songs in SpongeBob the cartoon,
Yeah.
and when I was a wee lad, I watched that religiously. Um, and then someone at my school one day, Ocean Man became sort of like an internet meme, but I think this was like slightly before that. I just someone was started singing that song randomly, and I'm like, I've heard that song. That's from. And then I realized I went back home and I looked it up. They said that's from the SpongeBob movie. I haven't listened to this since I was a kid, and then I saw it's on this album, and another suggestion popped up that said "Waving My Dick in the Wind" by Ween. I was like, oh, that's a little weird. Like, oh, haha, it's kind of funny that this weird band that made this vulgar song also did. So I listened to it, and it probably didn't leave that much of an impression on me on first listen. I love that song now, but I was probably like, once you get past the novelty of they made some vulgar song, but also a song in SpongeBob, it's like, whatever. And it's in by chance. I don't know what compelled me, but I said, I'm going to listen to one more song from this album. I just chose one at random, random, and it just so happened to be Buckingham Green. And once I heard that song, I immediately sat down and listened to the whole album front to back. And then I listened to it again and I listened to it one more time. And then I decided to listen to every single one of their albums. And then like a couple months later, I'm like, I think I have a favorite band.
Yeah. Give me your honest opinion right now. What was your reaction to listening to the pod the first time?
Oh, it was the early stuff. I don't remember what order. I don't think I listened to the albums in chronological order. It
Yeah.
was sort of like songs here and there, and then I decided, okay, I'll listen to. I think the first one I listened to all the way through afterwards was Chocolate and Cheese, but I kind of had a feel for, okay, this album White Pepper, the two songs I've listened for some reason it sounds more polished. I don't know why, blah blah blah. This band is weird. Sometimes they sound really good, sometimes they sound lo-fi. I don't care. I just heard the good songs is what I heard.
Yeah.
And then when I got to the first couple of albums, I think I heard some songs from Pure Guava and then the pod. And yeah, when I heard the pod all the way through, it was just like, I mean, it takes anyone who likes that album, at least for me, I think it's sort of a matter of it needs a little bit of time
Yeah.
to just sort of sink in, and that's how it felt for me. But I also was like, man, Porker Roll and Cheese is a good song. Like Captain Fantasy's great. Even on first listen, I was like, like the songs that were really good, kind of like it felt evident to me of the songwriting. And then later on, as I got adjusted to the brownness and got tuned into that, I felt more like, Stallion Part One and Pollo Asado, all these weird songs. They felt more like if you take it into context of they can also write a Captain Fantasy or a Demon Sweat, I could swallow it more. And then I was just more I was like, oh, okay. I get the vibe of the atmosphere that they made this in. And from that point, it really kind of helped me. Albums like The Pod and Pure Guava sort of helped me expand my musical horizons a bit of like, again, I'm not super into experimental stuff, but I was just like, sometimes you can do a little bit weird stuff and mix that in with more traditional songwriting. And then just sometimes you just goof around, and sometimes
Yeah.
it'll work if you're able to channel it into something. And I think that's what they did. But yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't immediately like listening to the pod and be like, oh, this is great. It took time.
Yeah, yeah. I know I've talked to people who said that they did like it, but those are usually people who are hearing that come out in real time. Because if you were 15 or 16 and you came across that album, and I used to do this, I used to go to HMV, the record store. That's what we called it up here. I don't know. Did you guys have HMV down there? Is that, well, maybe I'm talking to the wrong
I
guy,
don't think so.
but like it's just like a chain record store. And I did go into like metal sections, and I would just buy an album based on the cover. And like Ween would have probably been one of those bands if you're flipping through stuff or is in the discount bin or whatever, you got it. But if you were like 15, 16 years old and you heard that, I think from the guys that I've talked to who heard it kind of back then, you'd listen to that and you'd think, oh, shit, like these guys are like me. Like like, not that the result may have been the same, but you're like, man, they're just goofing around and having fun. And like you say there, and definitely there's the shells of some songs. Like if you go through the discography now in retrospect, it's almost like, to me, listening to the pod, it's like how bad can they make these good songs, like to the point where they're barely listenable, but you can still see the kernel of a good song.
Yeah.
I always think of Things didn't work out the way that you had planned it. I'm just blanking on the name of that. Sorry, Charlie. I don't know why I'm blanking on the name
I
of
think
that.
it's Sorry Charlie.
Yeah, Sorry, Charlie. The live the live version of that is absolutely fantastic. But the album is like the album version's like just the kernel of the existence of that song. And then when you hear it live, it's like, oh, this is a great song. So that's what I always thought about that one.
They almost seem to sort of double their discography because the songs really, I mean, you've probably heard this thing of like, oh, you got to see this band live. Like, yeah, the album's not that, you got to see it live. And
Yeah.
I think Ween gets the ultimate pass because it's the songs live literally are different songs. Like I remember I had a line in that video where I talked about how the live version is She Fucks Me is great, but the album version's like so. And I do kind of stand by that.
Yeah.
Just in case it wasn't obvious to some, like not all of their opinions were mine. Most of their opinions were like exaggerated because you wanted to have like the funny banter. But
Yeah.
yeah, if it was actually all my opinion, it would have been very different. But yeah, songs like She Fucks Me just transform, and like Diener's able to actually put a lot of emotion into it. And he's able to make it this genuine ballad. Like once you get past the crudeness of the title, the song is actually about uh being in love with someone, being shocked that someone actually wants to be with you. And you don't really get that on the album. The album's, again, is like you said, is trying to suppress that as much as possible. But the song is definitely there, and they've got so many examples of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Sorry, Charlie is pretty much exactly like that as well. I'm going to ask you, since you have a tutorial channel and you've learned to play a number of Ween songs, what do you think if somebody was wanting to learn a Ween song today? What song would you give them?
um I would say, you know, I don't know if you're I'm a big Beatles guy. For me, in my
Oh, yeah.
opinion, like
Yeah.
my favorite band's Ween, and then like the Beatles are like basic. For the longest time, the Beatles were my favorite band. Abbey Road was the album that made me love music, just listening
Oh,
to
yeah.
it straight through. Like I liked music before then. I played a little bit of guitar, but Abbey Road was like, I got to learn how to do what these guys are doing. And the Mollusk also sort of had a similar thing. But and for me, Beatles songs are a great place for beginners because the songs are good, but a lot of them are pretty simple. And there's
Yeah.
also like you can just
But
strum the chords, but then there's the 50 orchestral parts on this particular song, and
yeah.
you can be like, once you get more advanced at playing and try and figure out what George Harrison's doing on lead or something. But so I kind of view Ween as similar ways. Most of their songs are real simple to play.
Yeah.
If I had to say, I would say if you're like intermediate, I would say probably just at least like the chords of Buckingham Green because it's a great chord sequence. If you're a real beginner, I'd probably say uh, something like what Diener was talking about. Again, that's just
Yeah.
simple chords.
I would
And
point
if
out
you want,
Diener for sure, or a Bananas and Blow would be another easy one, and it's fun to kind of play and kind of stupid. So yeah, sorry, go on there. I think I
yeah,
cut you off.
yeah, it's fun. And I guess some more like a more like quote unquote like I want to learn a cool rock song. You can't go wrong with like Transdermal or something like that, or a lot of the later songs really. Even songs like not that this would be like my go-to first song to teach, but if you listen to the later stuff, Diener always puts like a really good solo in there, like Object. I remember hearing that song the other day. I'm like, I forgot how good the solo is. It's real nice.
It's a squeeze kind of little suppressed thing. It's you could make all kinds of metaphors of given the subject matter of that song. My buddy
Yeah.
said that like the album version of that solo, it sounds like the person who he's obviously kidnapped or murdered or whatever it is he's done in the song. That's like the little like repressed sound of that person, which is pretty. Yeah, we found your sweater. But I would say, yeah, if it was me giving a song to somebody just to learn, I would say what Diener's talking about, because that's a CDG song with an E minor. It's a classic thing. It's like the Bob Marley song. I can never remember the name of it. So it's a bad example, but there's tons of songs that are just C, D, and G, and then you have that little E minor in there. Redemption Song is a song that I was thinking about. But also on that note, what's your favorite Ween solo? I'm putting you on the spot.
Favorite solo. I guess I would say Buckingham Green. Uh, there's so many great ones. I actually like tried to make a list of my favorites, and there's so many. I think there's so many. I guess I would just say Buckingham Green for the sake of brevity, but I do love how much it sounds oddly mature on Squelch the Weasel,
Yeah,
especially for that album where he's got his noise rock Guitar Hero stuff. And then
yeah,
Squelch the Weasels is very, for where he was at in his guitar playing, very mature. And it's still psychedelic and it's still brown, but
yeah,
you can tell it's like, okay, he's not just, I'm going to annoy people with my guitar. He's actually trying. And he's
yeah,
not that he wasn't trying. There's lots of great solos on that album, but that's a moment where the veneer kind of comes back and you can see these young guys who are surprisingly talented
yeah.
and they just choosing to do weird stuff with it. He's saying, hey, I want to say something with my instrument. And
I did a cover that song on the channel, and if you actually kind of listen to that song, you can break it down pretty easily. There's actually like double tracked acoustic guitars, which sounds great. They're hard pan, and the solo is like just delay, and he's got a wah on it, and it's just like a super loud screeching guitar. And I always thought that that was like the David Gilmour kind of the Animals album, that huge soaring tone that he does in Pigs on the Wing, I think it is, or whatever. Are you familiar with that album at all?
some I like Floyd, but I'm not like super familiar with everything.
Yeah, check out Animals. That's one that's worth a full go, especially if you're a Ween fan and if you like Shinola and stuff like that. Did You See Me to me sounds like something that just could have been right off of Pink Floyd's Animals, but I mean, obviously that's I think an influence. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that early stuff. That's a very clever composed song, Squelch the Weasel. So is that your choice?
For best ever, probably not, but
Yeah,
if I had to pick like uh, a really, it's Buckingham Green's the best ever if I had to choose one, but
yeah,
uh I would say probably my second favorite of all of Ween's solos is the one that Aaron does, that Jeaner does on I Don't Want It, because I
yeah.
think it's so emotional and it just sends chills up my spine. It's so surprisingly emotive. And I remember when I heard that he was the one who played that, and I was like, that's so cool. It's so from the heart. He doesn't have the same mindset that Diener does. He's not like more of a proper player. And Diener himself is not your traditional like shredder. He's got his own thing. But so I just thought that one was really unique. But there's so many other solos. There's
Yeah.
too many to choose from.
I think I could be wrong, but I think Aaron did the solo on the Freeman album. The For a While I Couldn't Play My Guitar Like a Man. That little kind of dissonant thing that he does at the end. I'm pretty sure that was him, and I love that solo. I saw them live when he was on that tour solo, and he had a really good guitar player with him who was actually playing a black strat, just like David Gilmour there, but they kind of did like a double solo, but the guy did like a cleaner version of the one on the album. But that's a cool sound. If I were to pick one solo for me, I think I did a list on this channel of my top 10 solos. I don't fucking remember a thing about that list, but I think just for like just as one solo would be the tried and true solo, because I think it shows Diener as just a completely evolved fucking killer on the guitar, because there's different sections to that solo and none of them are really like blazing shredding. They're just simple melodies, and then he's chosen the effects really well. Like I think he's got a Leslie, a rotating speaker on one section of it, and it just sounds so good. It just like in that song it's just like desolate, like a desert soundscape. It's just a really cool thing. I may have thought about it too much, but I love that fucking solo.
Yeah, I love how he's got that how everything you were describing, and like that it starts with a certain, it has like a sitar almost kind of
Yeah,
sound, and
yeah,
it's very drony, and it's got the Eastern flavor almost, which matches the imagery of the song super well for some reason.
mhm,
And then I love when whenever a song has a solo that changes the sound, like
yeah,
towards the end when he does those dyads, da, 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 da,
yeah.
da. Yeah, and it
That's
has
the
that different
little
sound.
that's a little, I think that's a Leslie speaker on there, and it's just a good choice. I was at a studio last weekend. We were doing some guitar work. They had a Leslie there, and I was trying everything I could to get that fucking Leslie speaker into the recording, but it was not required. But I was just like, I could ruin this recording session just for the sake of using a Leslie. So I want to do that someday. If there's one song, you say that you came to Ween through hearing, was it through hearing Ocean Man in memes or something like that? Was that what it
Hearing
was?
I think it was before that. It was like
Oh,
just hearing a random friend just
yeah.
like sing it passively, and then I remembered it.
Yeah, because I the guy who works for me who's about your age, he was saying that he knew what Ocean Man was too, and then I tried to show him some other stuff, and it didn't go over well. But on that note, if you have to pick one Ween song to show somebody to be like, these guys are fucking great, what's that song?
You know, I would. I think I've heard people been have been asked this question before, because any sort of Ween discussion online, I immediately like gravitate towards it. I think most people say something like tried and true or something. And tried and true is great, but I also have to consider that I am a big fan of the band, and I can't just distance myself and remember what it was like just listening to them for the first time. So I guess I would say, uh, yeah, probably anything off of White Pepper, uh, just to show them, if you want, if you if you have even the slightest tolerance of weirdness, then I would say something off of Chocolate and Cheese, like one of the real highlights on Chocolate and Cheese. Or the Mollusk. If you don't have much of a tolerance for weirdness, I would say White Pepper or something like Tried and True, like one of the
Yeah,
more accessible things. Just
yeah.
to and if
I think
because if you sorry.
I think my answer to this question has changed over time. I used to be like, oh, well, if it's a person who's got a sense of humor, maybe show them Bananas and Blow. If it's somebody who's into prog music, maybe show them The Argus. If it's somebody who like fancies themselves to be a bit of a punker or a metal person, then show them like it's going to be a long night or whatever. And now I think it's just, it's kind of a futile effort. I've tried to show my friends who aren't into Ween, I've tried to show it to them so many times that they're fucking sick of it. They're like, "Oh yeah, you and Ween, yeah, it's all always Ween or whatever." But if I was to pick one song, I would just pick Bananas and Blow, because I just think if you can't at least nod your head to that and enjoy, get a little giggle out of that, you're just probably somebody who I don't want to hang out with anyways. So that would be my pick.
Yeah, I think it's sort of to get their milieu, so to speak. You sort of need to take a nice variety of what they do in,
Yeah,
you know, because because it's more about their attitude. It's not so much that we're a gimmicky band and sometimes we do this genre. And Diener's especially has always been, no, we're not doing this as a gimmick. It's just like we just sometimes we feel we need to do certain things. So I think it's very hard to get someone into, it's easy to show their credentials with a certain song, like, hey, the Argus is a good song. The Argus is has a lot of technical prowess behind it, and it's these guys are not just a joke band. You can say, okay, that's good, but a lot of people are like, okay, but I don't want to listen to the goofier songs or something. So it's hard to, you just sort of like have to hope that someone is able to get into Ween, and it's not always the easiest thing. But when
no.
it does, it's just like feels really satisfying.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I've said it on the channel before. Somebody gave me a mix CD of Ween stuff because they thought I would like it. And the one track that I liked on the whole CD turned out to be a song that's actually falsely attributed to Ween. It's called Western Skies by the something chimps, the vintage chimps or whatever. And it always, like back in the day when you used to download like single MP3 files and pirate shit, I think these guys circulated it onto like Napster or whatever it was, and people said it sounded like Ween. So the guys actually just changed it to said it was a Ween song, and then it just got floated around. And that was the only song on that CD I liked for a long time. And then one day I just kind of put it in and let it ride while I was taking a drive, and I was able to get in there. And because just the variety on that CD, it was like Homo Rainbow, Transdermal Celebration, I think the Argus was on there, Happy Colored Marbles, like just the swath of those 30 songs, however many could fit on the CD, was fucking spectacular. I want to ask you, and I've kind of been putting it out to people on the channel. What do you think the possibility of us getting another album is? And this is purely speculation, but it's fun to speculate.
Well, recently, I think you mentioned it at your reaction to my video at the top of it, that Dave Drywitz said something about, because I read his statement. He was like, "We're playing really good. We're having fun playing this music, and the vibe is really good." I'm not saying there's going to be a new album, but I think there's more positivity than there ever has been. It's basically what he said.
Yeah.
And I think there's certain bands where they could make another album at this point, where they could theoretically, but it's just like you feel like the magic's probably not going to be there. And maybe Aaron, I feel like Mickey's way more interested in making another Ween album than Aaron is. Aaron is, I love him, but he's a very, not that he's not a nice guy, I'm sure he's awesome, but like he's very, you know, he's very a bit more reclusive and a bit more like I want to do something with my music, and Diener's more like, oh, let's get to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, Diener said numerous times that for him it was always quantity over quality, and
yeah,
some of his Diener stuff and the Moist Boy stuff I could take or leave, but I did enjoy the Diener album that came out a couple of years back. I think I would agree with you about that. I mean, I just don't think it could be looked past the fact that there would be huge expectation either way, and there's no way it could be a half-assed thing. And my personal hope is that they're just waiting. Maybe they've got stuff kind of going, and they'll just do it when it seems appropriate. Like they're not just going to be like, we're going to make another album this year. I think that I cannot believe that Aaron wouldn't be writing songs. I just don't see that being the case, especially because that Freeman album was so good. And even when he was kind of getting his shit back together, Robert McEwen, is that the guy he did the cover album? It might be, I might have the first name wrong, but it was McEwen. Is a Marvelous Clouds record. It was all covers from that guy.
it was covers from someone. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he was in some form of, again, who the fuck knows. He was in some form of recovery. I think when I saw him on the Freeman tour, he was drinking a 6-pack of something, but it could have been non-alcohol beer. But seems like he's got himself together. He's looking healthy. And I can't believe that he wouldn't at least be writing stuff. So my hope is that they're making a living touring, because that's kind of what bands have to do right now. They're having a good time. Things seem to be going somewhat well, and I just hope that we'll get another one. And I don't give a shit if it takes another decade, 5 years. I could care less. But I just like to get one more, even if it turns into like a Chinese democracy thing, like with the with Guns and Roses. If it just takes years and years and years, I'd still like to have it. So
Absolutely. I think, well, a lot of other bands, you feel like the magic couldn't be there, and I feel like, I mean, it's possible. Maybe Aaron's, because I know he's got said that he wasn't super happy with how La Cucaracha turned out.
yeah,
If memory serves, and maybe he's kind of afraid of putting out something mediocre, or maybe he's afraid that his heart's not going to be into it or something. But
yeah,
I think, just in terms of the potential, because they've always described each of their albums as a snapshot of where they were at a given point, and you can tell that because God, Ween, Satan sounds very juvenile and sort of, we wrote these songs when we were 12, has that vibe to it, and the
yeah,
pod, and each album has this like sort of snapshot of where those people are at that point. And I feel like a Ween album now that had a more, I don't want to say like mature sound, because that makes it like, that seems like it's code word for boring, but
yeah,
I think sort of an aged Jeaner, because he's sounding great today. I
yeah.
think it's like what Dave said, where they're all sounding great, and it doesn't feel like they're just out of touch with it. I think it's just, maybe he just doesn't. I think if they did make another Ween album, I'm with you where I'm willing to wait, but just in terms of realistically, I can't get my hopes up too high. But I would I think that it would be worth the wait, even if it was just a couple good songs. I guarantee you there would be at least one song that makes me go, "This is worth the wait,"
Yeah.
just
I
because
don't think
that's like their thing.
Yeah, and I don't think any of it would sound bad. Man, I do have to wrap this up. I got my little guy screaming in the other room. I got to take him for a walk before he dismantles the living room. But thank you very much, Trevor, for joining me here to talk about Ween. I appreciate it. It's kind of gotten me back into Ween actually these last couple of weeks or last couple of days since I talked to you. I've kind of been a little burnt. We've got some Ween fatigue going on here. But thank you very much for coming on the channel. Please go check out his channel and the video that I referenced early on the video. I'll put a link to his channel and to that video down there below. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to add anything to the discussion that we've had. And I think I'm going to have some more guests on the channel here going forward. I've been doing some videos about Insane Clown Posse, so maybe I should talk to a Juggalo. I think that could provide me with some inspiration for the channel. But thank you very much, Trevor. One question before we go. Zoom is telling me I have less than 1 minute left because I don't want to upgrade till pro. But what are you listening to that's not Ween related?
Oh gosh, tons of stuff, but I've been on a Blue Oyster Cult kick recently. I've always been a
Yeah.
big fan of them since I was a kid, and They Might Be Giants and the Cars, the Beach Boys, the good stuff, the 60s stuff, and just tons of stuff. I mean, there's tons of bands I like, but just at the moment, that's what it is.
Right on. All right. Thank you very much. I got to stop this recording here. It won't stop the call, but thank you very much for watching this video. If you made it to the end, we'll see you in the next one.